In the far north of Scotland, beyond the mountains, lies the flow country. Leaving Durness behind, we're moving along the furthest northernmost road in Scotland, and it is truly lovely coast. Nicer on the west than the east, but that's because I like the more rugged nature of this area. And as you can see, there are some glorious sandy beaches. Now I do like a good beach, and I like swimming in the sea, but it would have to be a bit warmer than this to tempt me nowadays. These happy campers are waiting to go on a zip wire across the cliffs, and that's not for me, thank you very much. I prefer two wheels. I somehow feel safer. But you can see the very rugged nature of this coast, and you can get the feeling of vast empty spaces. It's hard to feel entirely alone when you're following White Van Man. And it's amazing how many places up here have little businesses renting out vans and camper vans and things for the tourists. This is Loch Etherball, and you'll just see the very occasional farm along here and long stretches of seeming emptiness. You will find a few sheep scattered about because it's one of the few profitable industries. And although on a major road, the A838, which is the main road across the north of Scotland between Durness and John O'Groats, it is a road with passing places. And when you see something coming in the distance, it's worth waiting for them because you get a chance to just have a look at the views. And round here, most views seem to contain an element of water. And basically, that's why we're here. We're going through what they call the flow country. And it kind of flows quite slowly. There's lots of little streams and rivers where we're going today. Running down the side of the loch, you will notice that the hills are much flatter than we've been used to, although there are still some proper mountains dotted about the place. And the underlying geology of the place is made up of stones which are of a sort of granite type consistency that don't let water through. Hence the constant number of little locks and things that you will see about the place. Now this of course is a sea loch, and it'll be a little bit of a giveaway when you see all the seaweed running alongside the bank here. And I'll just nip in this lay-by, let them past. wrong side of the road, I know, and the cars behind didn't actually manage to work out what to do with each other. I'm sorry, I think that was my fault. The thing about motorbikes is they are just so much nippier. You can do cheeky things like that. The odd green field round here is probably land that has been reclaimed from the bog. And although it's great for farming, it's not 100% good for the bog. It drains the water away, and it's the water that's important. I do like to see, though, the use of the natural resources in the dry stone wall. Someone has just walked along, picked up a rock, put it down, and started with looking for another one to join it, and cleared the land that way. Lots of that going on in Yorkshire as well, of course. Well, we've been down one side of the loch, heading south. Now we're going up the other side of the loch, heading north, and then we'll get back onto the road heading west. This is Scotland, and that happens a lot up in the Highlands. So what may look like a 40-mile trip can end up being 60 or 80 without too much bother. I thought it might be a little bit cold and murky and wet today, but we're being greeted with a bit of blue sky. Although, to be honest, I have still got my heated vest plugged in. I love technology. You find a few of these little island residences. I suspect it dates back to a time when it felt safer to be slightly more sort of defensible, where you've just got a small headland protected by water on almost all sides. You've also got a damn nice view. Now I'm looking for the road that I want to turn off, because we can't go further north, so we're heading south. And I'm heading towards that hill that keeps popping up in the distance. And that is Ben Hope. It's a very important hill for climbers in the area. You'll see quite a few of them headed that way. And I've just missed my turn off. But this is the view from the road shortly after I missed the turn off. So that wasn't a wasted journey. Anyway, I'm back on the road I want, running alongside Loch Hope. Now this is an inland loch, so we won't be seeing seaweed. I love this road because it has that feeling of being the road less travelled. You can see the grass growing up the centre. It just makes it feel more of an adventure. Now there's plenty of little rivers and streams feeding into the lochs. And in between masses and masses, I mean, we're talking thousands of hectares of what is basically bog. and even the trees running alongside here can't get very well established. You'll notice quite a lot of them are stunted, but actually they do look lovely. And I can imagine what this place was like when there were a lot more trees like this on the edge of the lochs. Now we're getting into the lower slopes of Ben Hope. You can't actually see the highest part from here, it's hidden by these cliffs. And this area, as I mentioned earlier, is very popular with climbers. And the cliffs are apparently suitable for all levels of skill, except my level, of course, which is 0. We're at the top of the loch, and we've just got River Hope now coming down to feed it. I'm rather surprised to find some people actually just out walking the kids here, because there's not a lot of accommodation. They've probably got a camper van parked up somewhere. What you've got in terms of plant life here is mostly the very primitive stuff. Heather, gorse, moss, and that's important because this area is one of the major carbon sinks in the UK. Over a long period of time, the water has become acidic and can't escape through the rocks, and it preserves much of the sphagnum moss, which turns into peat. And as peat, it doesn't rot away anywhere near as quickly as it would have otherwise, and so thousands of years worth of peat is preserved, and that holds thousands of years worth of carbon. So although farmers are very tempted to drain the land, and foresters quite like to put up conifer plantations, those really are nowadays discouraged. Although there are some experiments in trying to use the land for a more light-based forestry. And personally, I think that it looks bloody marvellous just as it is. And the glaciers that once existed here, which of course melted all that time ago, have carved out a lovely little valley. And as we approach the southern end of the loch, we've got the River Hope running down, and you'll see dotted about large boulders deposited here by those melting glaciers. And it just adds to the feeling of being in the wilderness. Thankfully, with a little bit of tarmac thrown in. it's interesting to think that we're actually following the route that the first farmers would have taken as they worked their way up the valleys, maybe 10,000 years ago. They didn't leave us much evidence except for a few stone ruins. I imagine that they actually lived in houses which are made out of the very peat that surrounds them. And that, of course, will simply have settled. There's not much by habitation here. And if you notice, the rubbish bins are lying on their side deliberately because they couldn't stand up in the prevailing winds. Now I've reached one of my favourite spots. I like to just see what we have already dealt with in a previous video. These blocks which are just dotted about the Scottish landscape. They're very unique. And the Pictish people who lived here didn't bother to have a language that they wrote down. So what we've got in the video is about all we know about them. Blue, on the other hand, loves just sitting on the back of the bike and taking in the view. And what a view. And I love these little miniature locks dotted all over the place. And I'm sure each one of them has a name. And if you just look around, you get the feeling of vast emptiness. The occasional sheep, deer, maybe some hares, a bit of bird life, but that's fairly scarce. I think the RSPB own a lot of this land. That's the Protection of Birds people. And this sort of landscape is ideal for wading birds and birds that are ground nesting. It's also ideal for people like me who just like to feel, well, pretty much insignificant in the vastness of these sorts of places. There's a lot to be said for just coming somewhere that puts you in your place. Now here's one of the experimental plantations that I talked about earlier. I've no idea how well this will work out. I just hope it doesn't disturb the water levels and the thickness of the peat. It's great to think that by simply doing nothing except preserving what's here, we're actually doing something to maintain the world against climate change. Just me and my shadow, riding along. Hope you've enjoyed the video. See you in the next one. This is my ultimate destination, yet another youth hostel. And Blue, of course, has enjoyed the journey. He likes his motorbike. He likes being outdoors. Even with a wet bum. And most of all, he likes food. Subscribe and like for Blue.